the concluding session of our course, which is Psychology through Ancient Indian Literature. Just like how I have made a disclaimer in the previous sessions, I would like to once again make a disclaimer that this is an attempt which is perhaps only the beginning, not just for me, but all those who may be interested in this field, to do research through literature search, as well as perhaps continuing the legacy that our ancestors have left for us with vast knowledge. And there has been a gap in the research over the last 1,000 years, perhaps, and we need to continue that. If Sanatana Dharma is eternal and everlasting, so is its enormous potential in terms of helping humankind. And we need to continue the legacy in our own small way. So hence, this is an attempt, and I'm a psychiatrist by profession and also an enthusiast of Sanskritam. And I hope that I'm able to kind of bring those two together in a small way to understand this very intricate topic. Once again, another point to suggest is that we do not have a mention of the word psychology in any form at all in the ancient literature, and whatever is remotely related to the modern day psychology is what I am interested in extracting from the ancient literature. And in the process, I have included various topics. And I also believe that holistic wellness requires spiritual application as well. And therefore, I include the components of spirituality as well in this particular presentation. So just to summarize what we have covered in the last 4 sessions, today being the 4th session. On day 1, I introduced modern psychology in relevance to our topic. And then I wanted to kind of talk about the concept of Rasa Siddhanta of Natya Shastra and its a similarity to the model CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy model. And I hope I have raised enough interest among the participants to look at it, and perhaps academicians, if there are any, to look at the possible application of it in day-to-day practice, even clinical practice. Thereafter, in session 2, I also touched upon a different concept component, which was mention of dependence or addictions within our ancient literature. And I mentioned about the Kitava Ninda, which is one of the hymns in Rig Veda on miseries of a gambler. And we consider pathological gambling as one of the diagnosis in our psychiatric classification. So that's a very good description over there. And a touch of social psychology we have seen through Artha Shastra in relation to that. So once we have covered that, then I moved on to the concept of, as I said, the inclusion of spirituality in holistic wellness and importance of Atma Vidya in as a core component for us to kind of delve into various dharmic principles. And the key components are Shashvatam, the concept of immortality, Nirbhayam as a result of it, fearlessness. And then I wanted to kind of, before looking at other dharmic principles, look at how do we even approach, what is the best way to handle these dharmic principles among the various conflicting situations that we come across in our day-to-day life. And none better than Rama himself and dharma being Laukika dharma is complex, multidimensional, it can be transient, and therefore I coined the term dynamic dharmic algorithm, because it's quite algorithmic in approach. So this is where we left last week, and I will recap that before we go further today. Right. So before we, as I said, we looked at various concepts or dharmic principles of interest in holistic wellness. And before we proceed further, we can look at this nice little um, pictorial depiction, graphical depiction, where if I understand that I am the Atman, what are the benefits of it? Now that I understand that I am the Atman, I therefore come to conclude that I am immortal. And when I am immortal, basically I have no death. It is the body which dies. So the nirbhayatvam comes through that. And then universal love comes naturally. We will talk about it later today. Samadrishti. And karma siddhanta, we looked at karma last time through Rama's example. The idea of reincarnation then makes sense, punarjanma, and the importance of sat and satsangam also becomes important as a result. Not necessarily related directly to I am the Atman or the Nishchaya Buddhi, Sthita Prajnata, and Nishkama Karma. Those are more of models of how I work with my emotions and my actions. So just to recap the dynamic dharmic algorithm, the complexities of worldly dharma as multidimensional and momentary as well. We looked at it the last time round, and we looked at how and I explained what an algorithm is. An algorithm is a sequence of steps or set of rules, and we use that even for very simple tasks or even very complex tasks. In essence, one overrules the other in an algorithm, and depending on the situation. So we are juggling with dharmic choices, as I have put the word over there. And I made a case that Rama is an expert, was an expert on handling dharmic challenges. And I proposed that there are advantages of following the dharmic algorithm, because once we get used to it, we can make choices rather quickly, but at the same time, relatively fair decisions, and also at the same time, possibly right choices as much as we can make, and at the same time, accepting responsibility for the decisions we have made, accepting consequences, and absorbing the fallout from the displeased camp. There are always situations where, especially when there are likely to be two right choices, or two equally right or equally wrong, there is always going to be a displeasing camp or displeased camp. So we will be able to absorb the fallout. I can't go into the details again because we're repeating it today, but I hope people are able to recollect from the last session. And the advantage also is that we stay content with balance of emotions, and we continue to apply this throughout our journey of our life. Frankly speaking, we do this, or I'm more interested in developing leaders. And leaders need to be equipped with decision making, quick decision making, fair decision making, and so on. So we need more people in this world who can become such dharmic leaders. And Sanatana Dharma is beneficial at all levels only when it is practiced. Okay, and it is Sanatana Dharma is not a pacifist kind of an exercise. Yeah. So Sanatana Dharma is beneficial at all levels only when it is practiced. So, of course, Sanatana Dharma is from a cosmic point of view, and Laukika Dharma is an offshoot of it. So, nevertheless, it needs to be worked upon. You can't just be pacifist. And again, I'm therefore very interested in developing that ability in everyone not only leaders, ultimately everyone has the potential to become a leader, particularly following the dharmic framework. And by following Sanatana Dharma and also practicing application of Dharma, particularly through an algorithmic approach, we then can balance becoming courageous, loving, compassionate, decisive, and also being truthful. All those can be juggled together. Yeah, and then we looked at how Rama actually has applied these principles. We looked at the example of a shloka where when Kaikeyi influences Dashratha to exile Rama, and Rama hears the news. Rama is returning back from Dashratha's chambers to Kausalya's chambers, and on the way, he's heaving like an elephant, and that exactly gives us the understanding that he is emotionally quite distraught. The anxiety or the disappointment has come in, and he's uncertain of what is happening. It's too much to process, and he's heaving. He doesn't know what to do, I guess, at that point of time. But what does he do? He is able to he later explains to particularly Lakshmana that, you know what, I have been able to process my emotions because I managed to put them under control through my intellect. Etaya tatvaya buddhya samstabhyatmanamaatmana vyahate api abhisheke me paritapo na vidyate. So paritapaha na vidyate. I don't experience the distress anymore because I'm able to buddhya with my intellect. I'm able to control or calm my emotions. And that's exactly the strategy we're looking at. What does it mean? Rama is able to exercise the cognitive application to control his emotions. Go back to the first day when we looked at the cognitive triad: cognition, thoughts, emotions, actions. It is a triad triggered by the situation. So here we know very well that the situation was Dasharatha telling him that you are being exiled, and that's the situation, an unfavorable situation leading to distress and distressing emotions, the initial distressing emotions, and then the initial distressing thoughts. And what he's then doing is cognitively pulling the various dharmic kind of principles. And here the dharmic principle he has applied. Does anybody remember what dharmic principle he had applied? Anybody remember? Through the Kaikeyi situation that I have narrated last time.
Is it Nishkama Karma?
It's not Nishkama Karma, but he was able to apply the understanding that Kaikeyi was an instrument of karma. So I gave two scenarios, right? Fictional scenario and aitihasic scenario. In a fictional situation, if Rama didn't process this information through karma siddhanta, he would be saying, it is because of Kaikeyi that I am being exiled. So in that situation, Kaikeyi is an independent reason who is not affected by anything else. She is the sole authority for making that choice and exiling Rama. So therefore, that is the way he feels it. If he feels it that way, he is angry towards her. However, the original scenario is that Rama says, Karma karanena kaikeyi nimittam asti. So he has applied the principle, okay, karma siddhanta, karma is the reason why I am doing what I'm supposed to do as per its dictates. I am an instrument, so is Kaikeyi, she is an instrument, Dasharatha is an instrument. We are all instruments in the pre-planned karmic pattern. So therefore, All that Kaikeyi was doing was be there at that time. It's almost like she is having to utter those words, but it's all predestined. So it's not her fault. It is actually, she's just a medium through which this is happening. So I'm forgiving her, nothing to do with her. And that's exactly what he has been saying to Lakshmana, by explaining to him, Lakshmana, that you know what, karma is an, I'll just read it in English, and any unanticipated and sudden hindrance to the action undertaken shall be deemed to be the act of destiny. He's explaining, and then he says, overpowered by destiny, she is speaking such unpleasant words. This, is the impact of destiny. So, and he says she cannot be blamed for the obstruction to my coronation. So, because he has applied this principle, he is able to forgive her and he is able to calm his emotional distress as a result. Okay, so this is how the dynamic dharmic algorithm is going to apply, and we then can now start looking at a few dharmic principles. I don't want you to go through an exhaustive list of them today, but I think it will be important just to see a flavor of it, so that I would encourage you all to read through any literature that would be helpful in this context. Um, Suggested ones are, Ramayana anyway. Bhagavatam is another one where you can read stories, and in stories there are characters, and you can see how characters actually apply these dharmic principles. And in Bhagavatam especially, you see Atma Vidya through and throughout. Every scenario, Atma Vidya plays a major role. So you can see how it is applied, and you have to then start practicing it in your own lives. I do get a lot of questions from people saying, but it is difficult. And I think I explained clearly the last time. Yes, Sanatana Dharma is not that easy, but there is no escape. I think basically the point is that I can say that it is equally easy and equally hard. The concepts are not difficult at all, but practice is where we often fail. Any questions so far before we move on?
Sir, can I have a question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
See, Rama himself has said in Ramayana many places that I am a god. So are we now comparing the qualities of God to a normal Atma like ours?
I must confess, I only read up to Aranya Kanda. I haven't seen Rama saying he is a god until at least Aranyakanda. I don't know if he has said so in Kishkinda Kanda, Sundara Kanda, and so on.
No, the Vibhishana Saranagati, when Rama does, it is an act of God. It cannot be an act of an individual or a normal Atma.
Okay, so what's the point then?
The point is, here we are comparing Rama's dharmic principles. I agree. One has to aim to reach those levels. But then, are we comparing a god with a normal Atma?
And is Valmiki the one who has said all this?
Yes.
That I have that I have presented so far.
Should be, yes.
Yeah.
Should be Valmiki only.
Yeah. So none have been written by me. It has been Valmiki through and through who has said whatever he has said.
Right.
So it is.
I agree.
So all these shlokas, Rama has been portrayed the way any human would be portrayed.
Yeah, but then the human portrait has to be manifested. No, it is all only potential.
And that I don't know. All I'm saying is this is all Valmiki's narration, and I have not tampered with any of Valmiki's narrations.
Understand? Valmiki's narration in Krita Yuga. Every Yuga has got a different dharma.
But I'm sticking to Valmiki Ramayana.
Understand?
The original. That's the original Ramayana.
So it is the Krita Yuga's dharma we are talking.
Be it, but it applies to me here. It somehow
it applies Definitely applies.
Yeah, it
Definitely applies. No
Yeah.
doubt about it. Definitely applies. The point I'm trying to make is that we as normal Atma have all these potentials which has to be manifested. So we'll have to look for ways to get there. We are not there yet.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. And I don't have any reason to not believe that I or you cannot become Rama. So we can. As you rightly said, we have the potential. If we are the same Atma, we have the potential. But I'll leave it there in terms of the discussion in terms of whether it is God who has been presenting himself this way or not. But for all practical purposes, here we can learn a lot from Valmiki's description of Rama's difficult situation and how he taught us how he is coping with the difficult situation using his own buddhi. In his own words, we have learned, and it is for us to now apply in our lives.
Yeah, the
May I
underlying
interfere
principle.
here? May I interfere here?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I read Ramayana from beginning to end twice or thrice, but no, Valmiki Ramayana, I mean. But nowhere Rama himself told that I am God. Nowhere.
Correct.
This is the fact. And if actions are resulting like a God, that's natural. But we all know that he is Avatara. But Rama himself has not told that he is God. If he is God, that's what my impression.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Hariyam, Srinivasa garu.
He also said, Atmanam Manusham Manye Ramam Dasarathatmajam. He said, I am thinking I am only the son of Dasaratha. Though gods are coming and they are reminding him that you are Narayana, he said, I am only human being.
Okay, thank you.
Hariyam, Srinivasa garu.
Yes, Hariyam. Yeah.
My name is Seva Prasad.
Mhm.
I have a question regarding the application of dharmic principles.
Yeah.
If during times of distress, I may not have the capability to apply. In normal situations, I can, but if I'm under stress, I may not be able to apply. Do you subscribe to the view that in such cases, I should depend on a dharmic therapist or a dharmic psychiatrist to actually make that kind of decision making?
I really liked your suggestion about dharmic therapist and dharmic psychiatrist. And that's the direction we should head towards. Why not? So this is the whole point. I'm glad that you found some scope for future development. I seriously think that every model, every cultural nuance should be understood here. We as a dharmic civilization, we have our own history and trajectory and what direction we are going to head in. And why not? Surely, absolutely. I think the whole idea of developing that Indic psychiatrist, Indic therapist, or a dharmic psychiatrist or a dharmic therapist is a wonderful idea. In fact, I go to the extent to say that I actually am a believer, strong believer of native wisdom. And by choice of the phrase native wisdom, I actually want natives across the globe, whatever their cultural bearing is, that therapy or that approach should have sensitivity to their own cultural, linguistic, whatever aspects. What we have so far in the modern world is a one shoe fits all. It's like a huge globalized kind of a model. It's also a secular model because a secular model is devoid of spiritual component. In the West, interestingly, spirituality is making headways in becoming part of holistic wellness. In India, because we have been copying the models, we are still sticking to the secular model. Very funnily enough, although we have been torchbearers all these centuries. So that's a very interesting situation we are in. I'll just go back to another point that you have made. In difficult situations, should we be needing dharmic therapists? There are two parts to it. One, yes, when we are in control of our lives and the triggering problems are mild, yes, I agree with you that we will be able to kind of apply those principles and cope with our situations. But I would also like to say that with practice, with a lot of practice, when algorithm becomes second nature, just like how Rama had mastered it, I would believe that even in serious situations, we would be able to apply it. But it's always great to have somebody who can, hand hold us in difficult situations, and that the role of therapist becomes quite interestingly applicable there. Thank you. Wonderful contribution there.
Thank you.
Anybody else has a
Yes,
question rather than a
I would
comment?
like to put forward my views on this is this
Okay.
dharmic therapy is the inbuilt in Sanatana Dharma.
Yeah.
Why I say this comment is the whole Puranas, Pujas, Vigraharadhana, all these things are linked with Punya and Papa Siddhanta, and this is called Arthavada.
Okay.
And Phalitam for any work we do, Phalitam for any puja we do, all these things gives a mental satisfaction, and it gives all a psychological therapy to the person who is in trouble. And similarly, whenever you approach a person to astrologer or a purohit or a pandit, he always gives, whenever you go with a problem, he always says, you do this puja, you do that puja, you do some 11 pradashnas, you go and do something to Hanuman. This, though you are putting the God at the forefront for the sake of confidence level, to build up the confidence level, at the same time giving an exercise pattern of the therapy towards the problem he is having. Though these
I
things are
understand.
inbuilt in astrological
Yeah.
systems, in puja
Perfect.
vidhanams, all
Yes,
these
I
things,
think
the
it's a
Ardhavada
valid
is
point.
playing very.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Point taken. So therefore, going forward, such Jyotish experts can be trained to become therapists as well. They can double up. So there is definitely a role for it. I think modern world therapy has become a necessity for professional strengths that it brings in with, like confidentiality, keeping the information confidential, being non-judgmental. So therapist, therefore, is an interesting area, and we can't ignore. But the traditional roles who have people who have been playing, we can strengthen them, and that is how we can build dharmic therapists. Like as you very rightly said, Akhil Garu, Jyotish experts can become very effective therapists as well.
I have a point to say.
I can see a couple of other hands, Dr. Patel and Srikantam Prahlad Kumar Garu. Dr. Patel first, please.
Yeah. See, being a medical practitioner, we apply many times these things, whatever we have been discussing. For example, children, they don't listen all those things. Then we say, have you told them Ramayana? Yes, sir, they know Ramayana, everything very well. But what do they know? What is Rama's behavior with the father? What is the Rama's behavior with the brother, sister, sister-in-law, stepmother? These points have to be told to the children, and it works like a story as well as it works like a psychotherapy, and the children will develop those qualities. I should respect my father. I should not talk whatever I feel like. So these things we apply in that. And as you rightly said, as the Prabhakar Rao rightly said, Rama never said, I am a God. But the entire Ramayana has proved that a common man like you and me also can raise to the level of God with our actions, with our thinking, with our perception, and with our motivating others.
Thank you. Points well made. Thank you so much. Srikantam Prahlad Kumar.
Thank you for giving me the chance. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. The point I want to make is throughout Ramayana or many places in Ramayana, Rama has not been described as an incarnation of God except in Balakanda and other kandas. In Ayodhya Kanda, after crossing over Ganga, the first night he spends on the other side of the Ganga, he says he asks Lakshmana to go back and take care of both Kausalya and Sumitra, because Kaikeyi is a vengeful woman and she may harm both of them. That is one. And he regrets that Dasharatha has disowned a most devoted son like him, and he has yielded to the desires of Kaikeyi because she was a beautiful woman and she was his favorite wife. And therefore, Rama shows his human qualities on the first night of crossing over Ganga, and that shows the most difficult situation. How could he control himself and come out of that difficult situation by controlling his emotions? And similarly, when Sita was kidnapped, on that day also, Rama goes on blaming Kaikeyi's desires have come fruitful now, and therefore I am now suffering from separation from my wife. And Sita also says in Sundarakanda, Kaikeyi has succeeded in separating both of us, and we have been, again, they also say these must be the result of the sins committed by me in my previous Janma. Rama also says that thing. Therefore, Rama and Sita, they behave like just human beings who are able to reach higher levels of, let us say, consciousness, higher levels of good qualities, so that they have reached the state of Purushottama or Maryada Purushottama. Therefore, it is by reading Ramayana, even in smaller sections also, that shows that we are actually again becoming, we can strive to become more like Rama than like Ravana. That is the point. And particularly Rama and Sita, both of them, they exhibit human qualities. Rama goes on weeping for separation. This is the point I want to make. Ramayana, and Rama is not incarnation from the beginning of
point noted. In the interest of time, thank you so much again. Wonderful contribution there. There are examples. What you have cited is ample examples of the human nature that has been portrayed in Valmiki Ramayana at different contexts. Okay, why don't we move ahead and we can have another discussion at a later point of time. Okay, so sorry, just a minute. Yeah, okay. So I'll just try and bring in few principles here. The first one I'm going to talk about is Nishkama Karma. A very important, valuable concept which we can apply in our daily life, isn't it? And it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. For those who want to have, those who have no knowledge of it, please refer to Bhagavad Gita, 2nd Adhyaya, 47th Shloka, which is Karmanyeva Adhikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana Ma Karma Phala Hetur Bhuhu Mate Sangostva Karmani. And I would suggest read it many times and understand it. I look at everything as a formula. And here is a formula as well. There are 4 components to this formula. What is Nishkama? Kama means desire. Nishkama is desireless. Karma would be action. And how do we perform actions in our daily life without having a desire? So what do we normally desire when we do an action? We desire a result, a favorable result, that too, normally. And sometimes we experience undesirable, unfavorable results as a result of our action. And then we get extremely disappointed. We blame ourselves. We blame the cosmic, divinity, and we blame others maybe, and so on. And when we actually succeed, we feel proud that I was the reason why that result was achieved. We may actually attribute it to others as well, or we may thank God as well, and so on. It works both ways, right? So what we are seeing is that the formula actually takes into account 3 aspects. One is goal, another is result, third is duty, and of course the fourth would be the karta, who is doing it. And how do we understand that doer, the karta? Is he the primary reason why the duty is happening, the action is happening, or is he the instrument for the action to happen? Now, this is where again the entire gymnastics of cognitions and emotions comes into play. We have already seen the example of Rama and Kaikeyi earlier on, when Kaikeyi was seen to be the instrument rather than the instigator. We'll just use those words for easy comparison. Instigator of action, instrument of action. So if I am the instigator of action, I am assuming responsibility for the result. If I'm the instrument of action, I am actually only doing the duty, whereas the result is not in my hand. That is exactly where it differs. The instigator of action, therefore, feels not only responsible, he or she actually feels the pain and the joy as well, because they believe they are the reasons why the action is taking place. Whereas the instrument of action doesn't feel those emotional turbulences. And that is exactly what Bhagavad Gita shloka, the next one, in Sthita Pragyata actually comes about. Dukkheshu anadigna manaha sukheshu vigata spruhaha. So in sorrowful times, he is not distressed. In joyful times, he is not overexcited. How does it come? Because he is able to be an instrument. Where else does Sri Krishna talk about instrument? He talks about instrument in Vishwarupa Sandarshana Yoga, the 11th chapter, where he says, Nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. You become instrument only because I have already killed all these people. All you need to do is just keep throwing the arrows. That is your action, and you are the instrument. When you are actually doing that, you are not feeling responsible for killing people. They are not dying in your hands, neither are you killing them. Those things have already happened. You are just playing your part. That's it. These are all interrelated in that sense. So what are the four components of Nishkama Karma we are looking at? Karmani eva adhikaraha tava. Your duty is only in fulfilling the actions or the duty or the action. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Never do you have an adhikara in the result. Ma karma phala hetuhu bhuhu. Neither are you the reason for the result to manifest. Now, it's almost like saying that I'm only asked here to do the work. I don't have the authority to enjoy the result. I don't want to do this kind of work because it is not productive. I mean, I'm not gaining anything out of it. Why should I do? I'm not going to do anything. So I will sit idle. I will not do it. So therefore, the fourth part of the equation is asanga. So where is ma karma phala hetur bhuhu mate sangaha akarmani astu akarmani. So you cannot sit still. I'm sorry, he says. You can, if you say inaction is what you will choose, inaction is not part of the rules of the game. I gave this example in a different way. Let's say, for instance, there is a game called treadmill runner. And the idea is that the treadmill will be on. You are not supposed to get off the treadmill, okay, until we say get off. And it is for you to keep running. So how do you keep running? You need to keep running in a way that you will not fall. You will not exert yourself. You're just completing the action. It continues. Treadmill doesn't stop, right? So there is no inaction there. It's like an action. It has to carry on and on and on. So you can't stop. Why is it important in daily lives? The reason being, a lot of us have the tendency to possibly choose inaction out of either luxurious living or apathy. There are things happening in the world, but we choose not to get engaged in the society. So societal building doesn't happen. Family welfare doesn't happen. Or I may be in a grihastha phase, but I'm a pseudo spiritual. I'm sorry to say if I'm offending anybody here. You are in grihastha phase, and if you have accepted grihastha dharma as a husband or a wife, you have a responsibility. If you have assumed it, fulfill it until you retire, which means until you reach vanaprastha. You have to work, you have to earn, you have to make sure the material needs are taken care of for the family's welfare. There is absolutely no scope for you to say, oh, I'm not going to do these things because I don't believe in material wants and wishes. You may not, but what about your family? What about their needs? If you have accepted grihastha phase, fulfill it wholeheartedly. This is where the akarma comes in, and that is tamasika led. That is not helpful. I guess maybe that's the reason why Sri Krishna throughout Bhagavad Gita insists that akarma is not to my liking. I don't like it. Do karma. I would be happy if you do karma. So this is the lesson we need to learn. The treadmill test. The treadmill test is it will keep going. You have to keep running. I won't stop it. So no inaction, action. But you work on it. You work on it in your own pace. No greed. Don't get excited and run too fast, only to fall again. So pace it, pace your work, pace it in such a way that your emotions are stable, your material needs are within the desires of what purusharthas allow you, and you can definitely keep this intact. Okay. This is how I understand Nishkama Karma. I'm happy if anybody else wishes to kind of comment on it at a later time. I'll just present with two examples here. Let's say there is a grassroots leader, is a good grassroots level leader, and is performing such good deeds that we have elections coming up, right? So he has been asked to contest in elections and he agreed to it. Now, he made no compromise on his approach to work, despite the enticement by others to find shortcuts to win the election. He declared that let my deeds be done as a duty, with no concern as to whether they're appreciated or turned down by people. And I will not be hurt if not elected, nor will I be egoistic if elected, as I am only an instrument to do these duties. Now, I earlier said there are three important words. Duty, duty is one, goal, result. See, we can all set goals to begin with. Unless we set a goal, how do I know where I'm going? But that's not the same as result. When we set a goal, that is only for us to know what we are supposed to do and how much work is needed to plan to reach the goal. And once we set off, the result then may match the goal, may not match the goal. And hence, goal is not the same as result. Nishkama karma is not talking about goal setting. Nishkama karma is only saying you have no authority on the result. So in this case, his goal possibly has been to do good to the society. And that is the goal. Now, the election is just a part of it. And the result of it is either win election, lose election. It has nothing to do with his goal, which was already set. And his duty He's already Nishkama Karma. The path he has chosen is Nishkama Karma, the way he is going to conduct himself. Hence, he is not disturbing the formula whatsoever. And that is example A. Let's say the same person, but a different, same situation, but a different person. So example B. So this guy is enticed with election. And this person has not set his goal, but his now goal is only to win the election. So to win the election, he is now starting to do good deeds with winning election in mind. What happens is when he wins election, he may stop doing good deeds because the job is done. When he loses election also, he may stop doing it because what's the point? He says to himself, well, what's the point? I'm not going to do it. It's over. Anyway, I lost it. And that is obviously not Nishkama Karma. Just to give an example. Okay, anybody has anything to share here? And Sonia ji, please go ahead with a short question, please. Yeah.
Namaste, Ji. Yes, you gave an example about the election, winning the election after winning the election. But how about, how do you practice the awareness of Nishkam Karma when it comes to ego and all that on a daily basis in order to prepare you for when the election time comes? Because this is not something that is an on and off switch.
Well, it's not just about election. I think Nishkama Karma, any principle has to be practiced. I don't have a shortcut answer for that. Any dharmic principle, I have said this as well in other webinars. You pick up a dharmic principle which is close to your style. And for some, it could be Nishkama Karma, some it could be Samadrishti, for some something else. So it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But you just need to pick it up and practice it every day. There's no shortcut.
Yes. That is what I meant. You have to practice it every day. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else has to say anything? Okay, so if not, we'll just quickly move on to the next, which is that the associated principle would be Sthita Prajna. And I've already mentioned that, for instance, when somebody practices Nishkama Karma, which is that continuing to perform one's own duty as an instrument without wondering that what's going to happen with the result, nor am I considering myself to be the reason for the result. Okay. And what's the benefit out of it? You develop equipoise. Your emotions are in check. How is that going to happen? If we understand the word Sthita Prajna, Sthita is stillness. Prajna is intellect, actually. It's not about emotion. And the intellect is the most important among all the tools that we have. So we have the Indriyas, the 10 Indriyas, and you have the Antakarana, the Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, and according to some, Chitta, some not according to some. Anyway, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara. Among these, Buddhi is accepted to be the most important, or in the hierarchy, the topmost tool that we would utilize for our benefit. Of course, higher than Buddhi is the Atma itself. We are not going there at this point of time. We are only looking at Laukika tools, not the cosmic tool. Well, it's not a tool, frankly. Atma is not a tool. Atma is me. So at the Laukika level, the material level, the intellect is the most important of all the tools. Because if we still the intellect, it can then, or we train it, dharmically train it, then it makes sure that all the indriyas and the mind are utilized in the right direction. And hence, we start developing all these benefits, whether it is precision in decision making, Nishchaya Buddhi, or application of Atma Vidya, that I am the Brahman, that knowledge, or the idea that my emotions need to be balanced. How, depending on the dualities, I don't care how the dualities actually affect my life. I will try to stay afloat. I am not going to be affected. So this is where the still intellect is going to help. So let's look at some shlokas just to see where we head with this. So Arjuna had asked, Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhis tasya keshava Sthita dhihi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. So here we can easily see Sthita dhihi. Dhi is the buddhi again, and prajna. He's asking, how does one conduct himself when he has this still intellect? How does he speak? How does he actually kind of move? He's very interested. He wants to know. And to that, Krishna is replying saying, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani eva atmana tushtaha sthita prajnaha tada uchyate. So one who lets go of his desires and then Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha, the most important, he is content within himself, using himself again. He is using himself to be content within himself. Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha. There itself lies the entire formula again. He is learning to be content within, which means he is not looking for happiness outside. Number one. Number two, and how is he doing it? He is doing it by himself, which means the same tools he has within himself. He is not borrowing anybody else's tools. He is using his own tools to be still. And that is again very much self-oriented therapy, you can say. Okay. Then we look at the shloka. Dukkheshu anadignamanaha sukheshu vigatasprahaha vetaraga bhayakrodaha sthita dhihi munihi uchyate. Again, the dualities. Irrespective of the dualities, I am able to stay afloat. I am able to transcend those dualities, not being affected. I can stay still whether I win or lose. Can you think of a cricketer who comes to your mind, who practices this or seems like a practitioner of this?
Sachin Tendulkar.
Anybody else?
Sachin Tendulkar.
Who? Sorry?
Dhoni. Sachin Tendulkar.
Dhoni.
It's Dhoni.
I agree with Dhoni as the answer.
Rahul Dravid.
For me, Dhoni is the answer. We have seen Dhoni in so many situations, isn't it?
Rahul Dravid.
Dhoni comes across as one who is not at all affected by any of these happenings. Yeah. So these are real life examples who can teach us a lot. They are all gurus. So Dhoni is a guru when it comes to Sthita Prajnata. Any day. There's no doubt in my mind. Okay. And earlier we have seen Rama's example of how he was able to kind of utilize the same strategies. And why am I showing the tortoise here repeatedly? Again, Bhagavad Gita uses this as an example. Not that tortoise is a Sthita Prajna. Okay, tortoise, when it is threatened, it knows to withdraw its limbs into the shell to protect itself. So that is just an example, a comparison, just for us to have a better understanding, not that tortoise is a Sthita Prajna. So just like how A tortoise is able to withdraw its limbs when it faces a threat. Imagine ourselves facing a threat. And what is a threat here? The information outside. Somebody gossiping is a threat to my senses. I'm seeing something which is not required for my own stillness of mind or spiritual growth. I am not engaging with that disturbing vision. So let's call them threats. So when we see those threats, we are withdrawing the senses within so that they are not engaging with unnecessary chatter outside. And he therefore gives this example, Yada samharate cha ayam kurmaha angani iva sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyaha. So indriyartha are the vishaya, the information outside, and the senses, the indriyas are the ones which are gathering that information. So similarly, just as the tortoise has withdrawn, I am withdrawing my senses from that information sources, and that is how tasya prajna pratishtita. For that person, they are able to keep themselves still-minded, still intellect, whatever you may wish to call it. I want to kind of take you through this kind of this chart here. I'll show it in the next slide in a larger way. This I have picked up and I have constructed this from Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya Karika. Sa antahkarana buddhihi sarve vishayam avagahate yasmat tasmat trividham karanam dwari dwarani sheshani. Apparently, griham, the word griham actually comes from the idea that it attracts things. Grinhati iti griham. Captures. So that's a very interesting way to understand the idea of a house. What does a house have? House has windows, doors, and there is a yajamani inside. There is a person living in the house. Those are the most important things as of now relevant to us. Of course, it has a roof, it has rooms and all those. We are not talking about any of those. Right now, what is important for us is the very idea of grinhati iti gruham. What is it receiving through? It is receiving through doors and windows. What is it receiving? It is possibly receiving wind from outside. It is possibly receiving light from outside. It is possibly receiving the splintering of the rain droplets coming in, whatever it could be, or the smells of somebody's fantastic cooking. It is actually receiving in. And who is receiving it? I'm sitting in the house and I'm actually enjoying the breeze coming through the windows. I'm opening the windows for that. Or I'm listening to some songs outside. They are also coming through the house through these windows. And I'm the Grihaswami. I'm actually enjoying all that information. All right. So similarly, we have the same things happening when it comes to our own intellect. Intellect is the Grihaswami. So that is the most superior of all the tools. The other associates, let us say the secretary for the Grihaswami, the intellect, is the Manas. You can say Ahankara as well, but importantly right now here, Buddhi is the Grihaswami, Manas is the secretary. So they are receiving information. Information feeds are coming through the organs of senses, which are the eye, ear, nose, skin, and tongue. Okay. So information is being received through that, processed through the mind, And then the buddhi, the intellect, decides what to do with that information, and it can then allow the organs of action, which is the karmendriyas, to enact. So through the genitalia, the excretory organs, speech, walk, hand, and feet. With these, it is able to act out. Why is this important? Earlier, we have clearly said that Sthita Prajna is the Sthita intellect, the stillness of the intellect. So therefore, the intellect is the most important of all the tools. If we practice it, if we train it well enough, train the intellect with the intellect itself. Don't forget that. Once we train it, then it decides what to do with this information outside. Should I receive it? Should I not receive it? So if it doesn't want to receive it, what is it going to do? It's going to shut the doors. I'm going to decide I don't want the dust coming through. It is the entire house is getting filled with dust. I'm shutting the doors. Unwanted information. So when I'm shutting, what is happening? The senses are not receiving the information feeds. If they are not receiving the information feeds, the mind is not going to get it. And therefore, there is no actions to be done. Okay, so this is how it works, and that is exactly what was being described earlier on as well. Now, interestingly, when we engage ourselves, we don't have an easy choice. We need to continue to live, perform all actions in this life. And when we perform, there are two things that this buddhi is going to do. Sarvam pratyapabhogam yasmat purushasya sadhayati buddhihi sa eva cha vishinashti punaha pradhana purushantaram sukshmam. So it does, the buddhi is double-edged sword. It can do two things simultaneously depending on how you train. So one, it has to process information presented through the sense organs for the enjoyment of the Purusha or the Atma. I am living, I'm residing in here. I have to make good use of the information outside for my own material existence in this life. I have to do that too. At the same time, buddhi also is such a clever tool that it tries to differentiate Atma from Anatma. If you remember last week's discussion, it separates these two things, that I am the Atma, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the senses. So that is all Anatma. Anything that is not Atma is Anatma. So it is able to separate those two and keeps on, and we have to train it to remind ourselves to be that Purusha or the Atma without wavering. So buddhi is capable of doing these two things. Hence, I always keep saying, Sanatana Dharma offers you that formula whereby you use the cosmic awareness or cosmic knowledge to navigate through your material life. The first session we spoke about what is the definition of Sanatana Dharma. This is one way to define it. Sanatana Dharma is that cosmic knowledge which helps us to navigate through our material life. That is one way to define. I'm not saying that is the only way to define, depending on the context. All right. So any questions, anything so far? Let's see, there are some remarks in the chat. So, sir, do you advocate the role of Lord Vishnu in Sagar Mathan as Kurma Avatara is also? I think I have very clearly said Kurma here is only an example and an analogy. Not, I already made a claim that here the tortoise is not to be seen as an expert of Sthita Prajna. No. Excellent operation of Vastu to Sthita Prajna through Buddhi. Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody has a question or anything so far? I see some youngsters join in, which is wonderful. Any young ones want to volunteer? What is your understanding so far? Are you able to relate to it? Or is this all nonsense? I want to see a nation where youngsters speak loud and clear with courage. I do not wish to see a nation where youngsters are spoon fed and given information overload. So therefore, I expect the youngsters to open up and say something, whatever comes to your mind.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah, namaste.
So far, I heard about this. I can't pronounce it correctly, but I heard it. It was not boring, but it was really interesting to know about the things.
Okay, thank you for that. Glad to know that it was not boring. Okay, anyone else? Sonia ji, you raised your hand again, is it?
Yeah. I just wanted to say that it's really nice that you're calling out on the youngsters. I feel like we are the bridge between the wealth of knowledge of ancient and connecting to the Gen Z and the so we have to use the correlation but yet make it simple and not too complicated. So I love how you're teaching. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, if anybody has anything to say, we will stop. If not, I'll just, what's the time? I think we need to
Sir,
get...
I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Those who are disconnected from this Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, whatever. So how do we start from the basics, like to understand it properly?
And who is speaking?
Mohan.
Well, I of course that's not a question related to what is happening right now, but and it's a huge question to answer.
Then I'll take it up later, sir.
Yeah, I guess so. But because you have asked, I'm sure everyone has very good answers for that, but I would think parents are the biggest contributors. And unfortunately, I have to say unfortunately, children spend a lot of time at schools and tuition centers. Schools are very bad places as of now to teach Sanatana Dharma. Parents are also not allowing themselves time to teach Sanatana Dharma.
But parents themselves do not know now.
It's the children who, it's not the children are at fault. The children are never at fault for that matter. Maybe one thing we had to, Mohan, as you very well know, the digital media, the social media, or the digital device explosion, maybe we should use it more productively, because unknowingly everyone is hooked to the devices at this point of time. Ideally, we should restrict the use of devices until a certain age so that they can read books. So I'm just giving a very general answer here rather than going to specifics. The role is, so therefore the role is surely for parents. Maybe I would advocate work should be for only 5 days a week. So at least one day, one of the weekends, Saturdays, parents spend time with teaching Sanatana Dharma. Sunday, they can go to movies and watch Allu Arjun movies or Mahesh Babu movies. Whatever they wish to do, they can do so. So 5 days a week is what I would advocate as working period. And if parents don't have time because of the working schedule as well, that is another problem. So And whose responsibility, therefore, for all these things? Policy makers. Who are the policy makers? Politicians. And where do the politicians come from? From the people. What are people following? Dharma or adharma? Adharma. So if adharma is what is ruling roost in the society, politicians are adharmic. So if only we start teaching dharma, from dharma, politicians come and they will lead, they will hopefully make policies which are dharmic in nature, and so on and so forth. So I don't know where to start and where to stop. The answer is huge.
The actions, Sanatana Dharma and Sastry Garu's, what is your organization name?
Hindu Mitra.
Hindu Mitra. We are committed to this cause only, to educate the all the three generations.
Yeah.
So that they transmit correctly to the future generations the knowledge of Sanatana Dharma. That is our commitment now. We are in that process only, my dear.
Yeah, Mohan is doing a wonderful work as well, Andy, Akila Garu.
Yeah, we will meet him.
Yeah, I think it will be Mohan Garu, be in touch with Akila Garu as well, just for you to explain what work you do. And I'll share his number so you can be in touch with him.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Swagatam.
Okay, so let's get on with this. So for the benefit of everyone, we'll use this story to see how it reflects upon practice of Sthita Prajna. So we have a farmer, and a hardworking farmer. He only knows to do his work in the farm. And one fine day, there was a beautiful horse which came into his farm, and he just carried on doing his work. He was not distracted. He saw it, but he's not distracted. But those in the neighboring farms said, "Oh, what a beautiful horse! How lucky he is that a horse has come into his field and he can own it." And a few minutes later, the horse ran away, vanished. And this guy carried on with his work as usual, was not affected. But the neighbors started saying, "Oh, how unlucky, just as we felt he was lucky, the horse now vanished, and he is such an unlucky person." And the horse kept coming back several times in the next few days. And then there were more horses. They were all, for some reason, coming into his field, and he carried on with his work as usual. He was not really affected at all. He was not disturbed. But the neighbors were swaying in their emotions with excitement and dejection, saying he was a lucky chap, and then not so, and so on and so forth. And it went on. What happened was that one fine day, as the horse was, it would keep coming almost on a daily basis, this farmer's son got onto the horse and started riding it, and he fell. He fell and fractured his leg. And the neighbors said, "Oh, how unlucky this farmer is that his son, just as he was enjoying the horse, we thought, he is now injured. Such a sorrowful situation. He is such an unlucky person." But our farmer, he served his son. He made sure that the son recovered. He was getting enough rest and whatnot. Then what happened was that the king in that area, the person who was ruling in that area, he declared a war. And then he gave an instruction that all the male children need to report to the army. And then, because his son was fractured and he was resting in bed, he didn't need to go, whereas everybody else had to send their sons. Once again, they had to say, "Oh, how unlucky we are, and how lucky he is that his son is not having to go." In all this, the contrast is that the farmer who was unaffected, he carried on doing his duty. he was not worried about what's happening beyond. He was doing his duty, whether it was farming, whether it was later on looking, nursing his son. He was just doing his duties, whereas the others were swaying in their emotions very, badly. So I hope that gives an understanding of the way we need to approach the whole idea of nishkama karma and sthita prajnata. I think so. The principles just carry on. What I'll do is I'll skip to the last one, which is the satsanga, the concept of satsanga, and we can close it there, because the idea was that I wanted to show you the dynamic dharmic algorithm, and then use it for any dharmic principles later on. And it could be swadharma, it could be samadrishti, it could be nishkama karma, sthita prajnata, satya, whatever it could be, daya, kshama, you can actually apply it. I will, as I said, I will conclude with the concept of satsanga. I believe that there are 4 pillars for effective practice of Sanatana Dharma. One of them is satsanga, another is purushartha, third would be grihastha dharma. These are what I believe. And fourth would be yoga or ashtanga yoga, whichever way you look at it. Let's just call it yoga, because we can then include karma yoga into it, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga as well. But importantly, ashtanga yoga would be an important addition there. So these, I would say, are the 4 effective pillars of practice of Sanatana Dharma. So they are satsanga, purushartha, grihastha dharma, and yoga. Perhaps in the ancient times, satsangam was there anyway, inbuilt. I don't know. I'm assuming that was the case, because satsangam is actually discussed at several places. Narada himself talks about it, and then Bhagavatam mentions it. I'm sure satsangam has been an integral part of society. And then perhaps from a societal point of view, we have enough evidence to say that temples were a place of satsanga for various things, whether it was cultural events, whether it was spiritual, whether it was societal aspects. So temple was a center of satsanga as well. But modern India doesn't have satsanga as a strong concept, and we are failing there. And but the Abrahamic faiths, whether it is Christianity or Islam, they have the concept very much inbuilt. So attending Fridays to the mosque for a prayer, attending church on a Sunday is part and parcel, and that gives them a lot of kind of confidence and brotherhood, and an opportunity to share their problems, all those things, and even talk about divinity within or divinity outside. There's a collective effort possible there. And for us to really kind of make sure that Sanatana Dharma is practiced effectively, we need to bring back the concept of satsanga. So I encourage everyone, whoever has a satsanga, please continue to be in that satsanga, strengthen it. Those who don't have a satsanga, form one in your vicinity. Nowadays, there are so many apartment complexes. Each apartment complex can have its own satsanga. Please do not take it lightly. It is an important requirement. So how does the Sangam? Sangam is basically an association. Sangha has a lot of meanings. Please don't ask me about other meanings. The one I'm relevant is relevant here is what I'm speaking about. So Vishaya Sangha. So I'll try and differentiate between Vishaya Sangha and Sat Sangha. Vishaya Sangha is what I have already portrayed earlier as the information that Indriyas are gathering. So Indriyas are the sense organs. They are the ones who are interested in information outside, and that information is called Vishaya. So Vishaya Sangha, let us take an example of a flower. And I see a flower, a beautiful flower. So this is how the process starts. So my eye sees the flower, and that is the Sangha. So the eye and the Vishaya, the Indriya and the Vishaya have formed an association, that is the Sangha. From that, what happened? There was an initial thought. Dhyayatah. I'm taking it from Bhagavad Gita here. Dhyayatah Vishayan Punsaha Sangaha Teshu Upajayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. Kamat Krodaha Abhijayate. Krodat Bhavati Sammohaha. Sammohat Smriti Vibhramaha. Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinashaha. Buddhinashat Pranashyati. Buddhinashat Pranashyati. So let's look at it as the formula. Again, I keep repeating, everything is a formula. So here the formula is, the first association is between the eye and the flower. And when it sees, the mind says, beautiful flower. That's all it says, beautiful flower. So that's the initial thought. Dhyayataha punsaha. Person starts to think, Sundaram Pushpam, beautiful flower. Then he has this desire, Kamaha. Aham Svikartam Ichchami. I want the flower. So that is the desire he has. And then what happened was that, let us say somebody plucked the flower before you went. Krodaha, anger. Mama Pushpam Grihitavan, he took my flower. How can he? How dare he? It is my flower. Right? There's an anger built up there. And then he is obsessing on it. Okay? Aham Vismartam na shaknomi. I can't forget it. I want it back. There's an obsession that he is possibly even kind of unable to forget it. He's obsessing on that. And there is loss of wisdom as a result. Smriti Vibhramaha. He is forgetting the basic spiritual principles as a result and forgets his goal. And then loss of discretion, buddhinashaha, unable to decide right from wrong. He is unable to discriminate, loses perspective. And from that pranashyati, downfall, he becomes his own enemy, falls to lower mental and emotional levels. See how beautifully Bhagavad Gita gives you the entire presentation. So the initial association only between a very benign, gentle association between the eye and the flower. And if only we don't control through our buddhi, it will only lead to a downfall, as we have seen here. Initially a thought, then a desire. Desire is not fulfilled, emotional disturbance, obsessing over it, loss of wisdom, loss of discretion of the intellect, and then we fall flat. Now, so that's the same here. Now, instead, if I replace that Vishaya with Sat, so here now instead, my senses and mind are going to associate itself in place of Vishaya with absolute truth of the Sat. How do we know this? In fact, for instance, for Telugu readers, Potana Bhagavatam, I'm sure even in Sanskrit Bhagavatam, maybe it is there. In Potana Bhagavatam, it is very clearly described. I can't remember the Padyam, but it goes on the lines that what is the use of having eyes if it doesn't see the Lord, the Vishnu, and so on. The ears are nothing but drums making sound if they don't hear the chanting of the Lord's name, and so on. So that's a good way to describe it. So there is satsanga there. The ears are wanting to hear only that absolute truth. The eyes are only wanting to see that absolute truth. The tongue is wanting to speak of the Lord's name. That's a beautiful way to describe it. So instead of me singing a movie song. Instead, I'm actually singing a divine devotional song and so on. Just I'm giving an example for comparison's sake. So if you do that, what happens? We see it from Adi Shankara's work. Satsangatve nissangatvam, nissangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalatatvam, nischalatatve jivan muktihi. So we go in the reverse order then, if that is the case. What happens? Because I'm associating my indriyas and mind with absolute truth, the Sat. So that is the Sat. Sat Sangaha. Then I'm able to displace the Vishaya, the other information chatter there. I'm able to displace it. Like the chemical bonding thing. Okay, one molecule is removed by the other kind of thing, displacement. And then that dissociation, nissangatvam, has happened. When that nissangatvam has happened, I'm not obsessing on those unwanted information chatter anymore. Nirmohatvam. When that nirmohatvam happens, I'm able to bring in nischalatattvam, the stillness of mind. And when I'm able to bring in nischalatattvam, that is the best situation that I can be in to start my journey towards moksha, jivan mukti. So this is how satsanga is very important. There are other added benefits of satsanga, which I have already listed. We will talk about it later. Narada, through his Narada Bhakti Sutra, says, Mahat Sangatsu Durlabho Agamyo Amogascha Labhyate Api Tat Krupa Eva. So he talks about Satpurusha. It is so difficult. It's a rare opportunity to find a Satpurusha. But if you find one, make sure you never lose sight of him. So that is how it helps. So having the Sat Sangam brings you towards spiritual progress. Whereas Vishaya Sangaha impedes spiritual progress. All right. And so if we look at the advantages, as I have already mentioned, or the way we need to approach in a satsanga, utilize it. When we are in a satsanga, we learn to avoid meaningless overwork of mind to just keep it busy. Meaningless entertainment of sense organs. I can surely say, including me, unknowingly we get onto this device and keep flicking up. I don't go into Facebook and all that, but I'm saying YouTube is enough. YouTube is enough to entertain. There are shorts and various YouTube videos, and it has its own algorithm, right? That algorithm brings in a lot of things that you feel you are interested in. We waste so much time on that. Satsanga replaces all these things. We also do shallow socializing for the sake of passing time. And then endless discussions on politics and news. So we can avoid all these things when we are in a satsanga. So there are several other advantages like that. Now we'll just touch upon the idea of Satpurusha. We have a Subhashita, which is Chaya Manyasya Kurvanti Dishtanti Swayamatape Phalantyapi Parathaya Vrikshaha Satpurushaha Iva. So Satpurushas are the people who we can associate with in a satsangam. If you don't find Satpurusha, try and become one through the satsangam. Okay? How does a Satpurusha behave? He behaves just like a tree. Now, tree stands in a hot sun. It doesn't complain. It gives a shade under which all the birds come and the animals and humans take rest. It bears fruits, flowers, which the humans actually pluck and eat and whatnot. They don't leave it there. They may also cut wood out of it and use it for their own use. But it doesn't stop standing there in the hot sun. Neither is it asking for any rent or any favors in return. So it is again a good example of Nishkama Karma. Again, examples are cited just for us to reflect upon. Now, don't say that how is true an example of Nishkama Karma, it has no emotions. Please, let's not go down that way of comparison. That doesn't help. So this is how a Satpurusha behaves. Even Guha says to Bharata that when Bharata comes, and he is actually kind of, obviously Bharata is so affected, and oh friend, we should always give to others but should never accept anything from others, is what Rama told him. Apparently Rama told Guha that we should give to others but not accept anything from others. It's another way of explaining action without results or expectation. And there are other examples like that, but as I said, this was meant to be an expansion of the dynamic dharmic algorithm, and I've already kind of stated that we need to master ourselves by picking up one dharmic principle, not all, one dharmic principle which suits our personality, and we apply it. What do we apply it for? We apply it for our own well-being. We apply it for all the benefits that we can gain here while we lead our material life. Thank you so much once again for joining. I conclude the 4 sessions here. This is the first time I have done this. If there have been any errors from my side, please do not hesitate to give me feedback in writing. I can definitely expand or make some corrections on it. Any form of feedback is helpful. I may hope to also put this together in a form of a book. That is an idea that I have in my mind. So if anybody has any suggestions, please do let me know. Thank you once again to Veda Samskriti Samiti for this opportunity to interact with you all. Namaskar.
Okay, thank you, Srinivasa Sastry garu. Thank you for the effort. All the 4 sessions, very exciting and totally involving. And all those people who have attended these 4 sessions, they deserve a certificate of participation. Please do give your full correct name and also, if possible, the telephone number. Okay, now I think question answer session is also, interaction is also over. Will we go for closure?
I think we'll just find out if there is anything people wish to share. We'll just give about 5 minutes. It's about 5:40 now. Maybe we'll close at 5:45.
Okay.
If anybody wishes to have any, if anybody has any questions, anything, please just let you know.
Sir, one thing I want to tell, we look forward to your book regarding this session in a printed format. Once it comes out, kindly inform us, such that you can have it, our own copy. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And who was that? Sorry, who spoke just now?
Vishweshwar Rao, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I will definitely make efforts. It may take a few months before I can complete it, but I will. Thank you for the.
Because that will have a constant companion. So
Yeah.
instead of hearing and getting difficulty in again recapitulating and all, that will be a fine gesture. I think.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Sastry garu, it is an excellent presentation, suitable to the present times. Instead of telling the old way only giving lecture and like that, the old Sanatana Dharma only in a new body. It's a very nice presentation. I hats off to you. Yeah, very good.
Thank you so much for your constant
I request you to take us some more topics like this and present to the audience, mainly to the young audience. It is very attractive to the young audience, the way presentation is done. So this is to be done now. This type of faculty should be developed for our future courses. That's what I am thinking. So faculty, I request all our faculty to adopt this type of system of presentation to plant the bija, the seeds of Sanatana Dharma in the young minds. So that's
Thank you once again for your words of encouragement. Thank you.
Sure. Let us go together and let us have more programs like this. My cooperation and our group cooperation will be always there with you. Anyone.
Thank you. Yes, Sonia ji, you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to say again, everybody's, thank you so much for bringing this to us. I watch YouTube videos and you said everybody does too. I think I would go back and watch this again and again, and then have internal conversations with family and have a satsang within the family to talk more in detail while you are working on your book. And, while you're working on your book and future videos, I know you put a lot of time and effort into these sessions. So really, truly appreciate it. And use these videos as a means to continue learning.
Thank you again for your words of encouragement. Yeah.
I request you from West Sanskrit side, members to give their references, phone numbers, so that we will be in touch with you. We will add you in our groups and convey our future programs to you. And please visit our videos and subscribe so that you will get the latest information to you.
Okay, I guess we can draw this to a close then. Thank you so much once again. Namaste.